What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Hollywood Already Did It presents Marvel Pair-Ups 'Tis the Season for Hawkeye. As always, I am your host, Blake Schultz, and with me is Jamie Gerard.
Hello.
And Terrence Tatum.
Hello, everyone.
And if for some reason you're popping up in the middle of this mini-series, what we are currently doing is a spin-off of our regular Hollywood Already Did It podcast, where we pair up Disney plus Marvel shows with whatever thematically matches them. So this is our Hawkeye series, along with Christmas action, non-traditional Christmas movies, talking about wonderful holiday themes and what they do for movies and why we keep using this backdrop over and over again. We are now on episode 4 of Hawkeye. There are 2 left. A lot has happened in this episode, and we are pairing it up with Reindeer games where not a lot happens. So it's going to be a fascinating time. Terrence, what did you think of this week's Hawkeye?
It's funny because I think I said last week was my favorite episode, which still stands true. But after seeing this episode, I can now say that this is probably my favorite Marvel Disney Plus series that we have. I really enjoyed this episode, not as much as the last. It's a little bit more of a slow burner. We got more character moments, but we really get into the nitty gritty of why Clint is a broken, just disheveled man, and I like that. I enjoyed that. I also obviously. If anyone knows me, I'm a huge Florence Pugh fan. Yes. So as soon as Yelena showed up, obviously I knew who she was under that hood. As soon as she showed up, I lost my shit. And it became but it was funny, I knew who she was. My wife, who was watching it with me, did not. And so when she took her mask off, the reaction she got was the reaction that was happening inside me the whole time. Because I was like, I can't tell her who that is until she sees it. I guess now we can both freak out. So that's literally what happened in real time, and it was great. But yeah, I like this episode quite a bit. I am a little concerned that there are a ton of threads going into only 2 episodes remaining. There are a lot of things that have to get wrapped up, and literally 2 episodes to do so. I don't know if we will get there, but I'm willing to give it a shot.
I'm pretty confident that they're going to wrap it up. Like, there's a lot going on, but I think it's nothing like, it's not like Loki level complicated. I think it's going to be fine to wrap up into. I totally agree that last week's still the best, but this was a great one, probably my second favorite. I don't agree that it's the best show, but I mean...
I know what yours is. I can go either way. Those are my 2, Wanda and this.
I mean, nothing's going to touch Wanda, but for me, it's this and Loki are I love them both so much for such different reasons. They're both so my thing for very different reasons, so it's hard for me to pick between them at this point because it's just like they're not really comparable. So maybe when it ends I'll have a better idea. But I thought the episode was great. I mean, obviously I'm friggin' stoked for Florence Pugh to be here. I'm glad we're gonna get 2 full episodes of her. I hope that the final episode is her being chummy with Clint. I don't want it to just be her fighting them. But it's just, I've just loved these like young women who are badasses. Like, there's so many of them in this show, and it's so cool. I'm here for it.
Yeah, I think the best stuff the show is doing is putting pieces on the board. And I think where I agree with both of you in terms of how much there is to wrap up, I think Jamie, you're right. Narratively, there's not that much to do. We just kind of have to solve the Ronin problem, get back home in time for Christmas, and stop this gang of hoodlums, which is not terribly tough. But I agree with Terrence in that we've now introduced Yelena. We have Kingpin in the background. Echo still has a lot of character development that I think we need to see. There's a lot of emotional baggage with Ronin. We may have just put an old Mockingbird on the table. There's just a lot of things, and to me, I'm feeling, and this happens with a lot of Marvel MCU stuff, and I often, once we can see the bigger picture of what's going on, it doesn't bother me, but in the moment, I'm like, oh man, there's so much setup here, there's so much happening, that I feel like we're sacrificing a little bit of Clint and Kate's arc that I would really want to see come together. Like, I am concerned that in these next 2, it's like, well, we kind of have to put Kate's stuff in the backseat for a minute to do Yelena and Clint. And then we have to kind of probably put Clint in the background so that all of Kate's stuff can do up. And I feel like if we had 2 or 3 more episodes, I'd be like, ooh, there's going to be a lot of satisfying stuff. We don't even know who's at the top of this, if it is Kingpin, but We know there's an Echo show coming. We know
Yeah,
all of
which I
these other
think they
things are
might
happening.
save a lot of her stuff for there, which I'm fine with at this point.
And I think that's where I'm like, oh man, there's just so many plates spinning that I want all of it to be satisfying. But otherwise, outside of that, I really liked the episode overall. My one small issue is I feel like I really like fangirl Kate. We spent the whole episode with I'm with an Avenger and I'm with Hawkeye. And guess what I'm doing? And a part of me is like, it's time to move past it. Now it's time to become Hawkeye and become
I don't
Hawkeye.
totally agree with that because I loved their little Christmas they spent together. Like, yeah, she geeked out a little, but like for most of that, it was them really genuinely bonding. And like, she's always going to be a little nerdy about it, but I thought that it was quite sweet and genuine.
And I love the little play that Jack says, well, when she's like quasi listening but not listening, he's like, well, she's doing a much better job of being calm around her idol than I would be around my idol, because I think that is correct. Like if this were months that had passed or weeks that had passed, I could probably kind of agree with you, but I was like, it's only been a day and a half that they've kind of been hanging around each other.
And I think that's probably the weird part, because as a viewer, I'm like, okay, we did this in episode 2 and now we're doing it in episode 3, and again, I have 6 episodes. Right. So I'm like, well, now I want to see. But I did love, like, my favorite thing in the world was the like Christmas bonding and the sweaters, training and throwing the coin and the VCR. That was the stuff that I really liked. I was more in like the elevator moments where she's. I know
exactly which point you're talking about. It's the elevator, and like I kind of was there too, but I was like, I can still see it. Like if I'm a kid and I see somebody doing something cool, and I'm mimicking everything that I do for the rest of my life after that person, and I'm still going to have moments where I kind of geek out. Like I'm actually getting to talk to, like, if I was a rapper and Eminem was right there, and I'm like, go, I'm still rolling with him right now. Like this is crazy. It's still going to slip out from time to time.
I feel like that elevator scene, though, was partially her using the excuse to geek out, but also partially she was trying to freak that old man out so that she wouldn't see her breaking into an apartment. And so she's like, what can I do to freak this man out? Let's just tell him the truth. And it's because I get to tell somebody the truth. It's like to kill 2 birds with 1 stone.
Right. He won't believe me, so I'm just going to put it out there.
Yeah, that makes more sense. But then everything else was great. The action is still really on point. Every time we do anything with those trick arrows, just that big purple goo, I'm like, this is exactly the kind of weird nonsense that I just want more and more and more of. We finally mentioned boomerang arrows, which means that they have to come into play now. I liked just the whole, we have to go back and get them. There's not that many left. We don't really make any more trick arrows. So whenever we do a like small resources moment, I'm like, ooh, good, great. There's not going to be a surplus of nonsense. This world is still scattered. We don't have anybody.
Right. It shows that the Avenger compound being broken, they haven't really reassembled at any point. Tony's gone, so that would have been his main sort of through point. Ant-Man's wherever. So yeah, they don't really have the trick arrows. It's like we gotta save these. So that does fit into this world as a whole.
And that's what we don't really have on the board yet, is somebody else, like a inventor tinkerer who can like arm everybody. Yeah.
Yeah.
But everything else was great. Yelena showing up, and just that one, she just shakes her head and jumps. I was like,
she just gives Kate that look like, nah. And it's part of, you don't want any parts of this, but part 2, like, you don't know what's happening here, so just stand down.
I wonder how much of that we're gonna get. How deep into but Yelena doesn't know what happened on Vormir, and how it's so interesting getting such a like street level story when the inciting incident for it is so
massive. Yeah.
What I think is going to be interesting too is that like Clint does blame himself for Natasha's death, and I think that it's going to be like more of a like, I don't think he's going to try to make excuses. I think he's going to be like, in a way, yeah, it's my fault. So here's what happened.
He's probably going to explain it as it happened, taking the blame for it, and Yelena's going to be like, well, if that's what happened, then you didn't kill her. Like that, then this isn't.
That's what I hope happens. I hope that she doesn't agree with them. I want them to be friends.
But I did love because like you said, it's such a massive inciting incident that made this happen. Him sort of having that scene recreated with Kate dangling off the side. I was like, oh, poor Clint is about to lose it right now.
Oh yeah, that was some great imagery. But I think Yelena's arc is still so early that I can't see her so quickly being like, I forgive you, Clint, even if she gets the explanation. I think she's going to stay mad and go do whatever she's doing with Julia Louis-Dreyfus and Kate Bishop's going to be the one that's like, it wasn't your fault, Clint. And she'll be more of the forgiveness, because it's also a good, to me, like the juxtaposition then of having the new Black Widow and the new Hawkeye
At
be
odds.
enemies rather than like super buddies is a very good reversal of like what we just did.
I mean, I'm fine with that as long as down the line of I want to see the arc. I want to see them become enemies to friends. It can be a slow burn, but I'll be sad if we don't get there because I just want to see the two of them so bad. But I think what's gonna happen is Yelena's gonna like accept the truth, but she's not gonna. I think she's just gonna walk away. I don't think she's gonna be like, okay, we're BFFs now. But I think it's gonna set up for the idea that a future partnership could happen.
Oh, the partnership will definitely get there. I just think it'll be.
It's going to take some time.
In a while.
I'm with you, Jamie. I think she's just going to walk away. Like her personality doesn't seem like the type of person that's going to be like, all right, cool, then we're good now.
Yeah.
Like, well, then when I came here, I can't kill you, but we don't need to have a conversation.
It also is really going to.
But I think eventually she may still come around to him, because you got to think about it. There's a huge block of time where she had no association or interaction with her sister. So she might go back to Clint just to be like, hey, you've been around my sister more than I have. Can you just tell me more about her?
Yeah, I think we'll get a lot of that. It also is going to really depend on what Louise Dreyfus's motivation and plan is, because we don't really know enough about her. Where I'm like, what happens if Yelena goes back and is like, yeah, I didn't kill him.
Right.
I did what he did for my sister, which was not take the shot and let her live.
Yeah.
Which is also kind of an interesting thing to play with now. You can reverse those positions and put Yelena in Clint's position that he was in with Natasha when he was once sent to kill her and made a different call.
That's absolutely what's going to happen.
Now she can be sent to do that. Yeah, I think we're going to see a lot of parallels in the Black Widow Hawkeye relationship with new characters of like, well, here's how it went before. And if we're setting up, like everyone's Young Avengers, I think is definitely happening, but I think we're also going to get a Dark Avengers with whatever they're setting up, because she has Yelena, who can go either way, and US Agent, who can kind of go either way. So we have a lot of people that she's sort of collecting that are in this gray area.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to be interesting to watch who goes with her and who doesn't, because she's not going to be by herself. She's going to have an evil team eventually.
Yeah.
And some of those people are going to stay and some of them are going to walk away. Whenever we get there, who knows?
Who knows?
We have so many things.
Yeah.
We still don't know if Toby and Andrew are showing up in a week.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm really excited to see where it goes. I just am I'm going to be nervous until the final episode of am I going to be fully satisfied? And are we going to get a Hawkeye season 2 announcement a la Loki right away? Or is Kate's story going to continue in Echo? Is it going to continue in Secret Invasion? Is she going to get a movie? There's so many things that I don't know yet, and I want to know them now.
I will say that after seeing this, I cannot get enough of Haley as Kate. They can just give me all of that all the time, and I'm in.
I mean, she is just now one of my favorite working people. I mean, Spider-Gwen, everything.
Dickinson's amazing.
Yeah.
I was like, every single project she picks, keep going, yay! I want more.
Bumblebee was I loved. I was like, I want it all. Give her to me.
The best Transformers movie.
Yes.
She's so good at adding heart and fun to every story she's in, and still having it be very grounded and serious, and keeping the stakes where they are. Because in a lot of ways, I feel like Kate Bishop's overall stakes are kind of low right now. It's like the rich family. If she didn't really know about this new stepdad, there wouldn't really be much adversity for her.
Right.
But she's so good at kind of empathizing with Clint's emotional stakes and the overall stakes of the story that it kind of works and gives that levity to it. Because otherwise, this could have been, the Fraction book is so depressing. And it kind of reminds me of when people, myself included, really wanted to do Demon in a Bottle for Tony. And we were like, well, Disney's not going to he's not going to be a recovering alcoholic flying around the Iron Man suit. It's sort of an Iron Man 2, but not really. And there's some stuff in the Fraction Hawkeye book that I'm like, yeah, that's not going to be the children's Christmas TV show. That's a really heavy, sad, there's no hope for him book. But I think, if you kind of take Kate out of this story, it is really depressing. He's just coping with all of the murders that he did, trying to put his life back together, trying to get over the grief of his best friend dying. And if she wasn't there doing what Haley does, we would just be like,
she's the beacon of light that adds to the show, because otherwise you're like, Jesus, Clint, please go for a walk.
They keep doing that really well, because WandaVision, which was a very sad show, would have been even sadder if it wasn't fun, quirky sitcoms as the backdrop, without that kind of joy mixed in, which even the backdrop of Christmas does. You're like, oh, we can't be too sad, it's Christmas, even though a lot of people get sad at Christmas. So does it really work?
Yeah.
But it's no one's sad in sitcoms except for all of those sad sitcom episodes. But I think those are the things that are helping all of these shows not be ridiculously heavy. Is there's always either a character or a plot device or something. There was a lot of joy and fun in Loki, but that show was also just oh my God, it's just so Jesus. Sad.
Yeah.
And if we weren't just so desperate to watch those two kiss, it would have been sad every day. But I'm very excited to see where it goes. It's just, I'm always on the Marvel train. I don't care where we're going. It's great.
Yeah.
Which brings us 22 almost years in the past to 2000, when a Christmas crime thriller called Reindeer Games came out, starring Ben Affleck, a movie of mistaken identity and Ocean's 11 casino robbery with the backdrop of Christmas, came out. And unlike our other episodes, we're not doing a whole batch of movies this time. I think those were very themed. Now we're sort of back in one singular movie. That's kind of how it continues. But we're still going to do major themes and whatnot instead of it. But there aren't that many mediocre crime Christmas movies. Jamie, you just watched this one for the first time, and I just... How did that go for you?
Okay, we're gonna feel differently because I loved it. It's are you kidding me? It's dumb. It makes no sense. They tried to cram so many twists into this movie that it's laughable. But one, it had more Christmas than I expected. It was way more Christmas.
It is Christmas the shit out of it.
And I love that. I just loved watching Ben Affleck just continuously get the shit kicked out of him. Charlize was awesome. She it was a fun performance for her. She got to play basically two characters in one, and I assume I like that she fucking got blown off out of a cliff in the end. I was
pretty violent. Yeah.
I was happy she fucking exploded and died. And I love, my favorite was I was literally saying, I was I don't like that Dennis Farina is doesn't have a lot of cool shit to do in this movie. And then 2 seconds later,
that safe happens.
Again, story wise, writing wise, plot wise, this movie is nonsense. But it is my kind of entertaining, and I will definitely watch it at future Christmas times.
No, it is really the most 2000s movie that I can think of. We're doing so many tropes that have either just happened but better, or are about to happen. When did Ocean's 11 come out? We're right after the first Ocean's.
One.
This is literally,
we're right before it.
Right before it. Yeah.
We're about to get an amazing casino heist movie. And this movie, they just keep being all about this weird casino in the middle of nowhere surrounded by snow. And the plan just becomes guns. We spend this whole movie being how are we going to rob this casino? And they're suddenly just we're going to dress as Santas and rob it. We're just going to walk in. We're going to flip one desk over.
So what's going to happen?
Everyone's going to freak out.
Yeah.
And then we're going to start blasting. It's going to be great.
It's going to be fantastic. The cast is insane. I saw this movie in the theaters. So I'm old enough that I saw this movie in the theaters, and I'm not gonna lie, Jamie, I fucking loved it. I loved it. It was one of those movies that I was I don't know, there's twisting and turning all day. And mind you, this came right after Devil's Advocate, so I already had a thing for Charlize. I was I watch anything that she's doing, and this was the same year Aaron Kruger, who did Scream 3, which I love, and he wrote both of these back.
I was waiting for this to come up.
And so I was like, fuck, I'm in. Let's see what's happening.
Of course we both like Reindeer games because we both love Scream 3.
Yes.
First of all, Scream 3 is a gem. I don't hate this movie. It's just preposterous.
It's nuts. It is absolutely nuts.
Because this whole movie, clearly somebody sat down and was like, okay, guys, I just think it would be really cool if Santa's robbed a casino. And then they built a movie around it. Like nobody sat down with anything else. But every other part of this movie, I'm a huge Lucky Number 11 fan. And I just kept sitting there being like, that does Mistaken Identity way more interestingly than this. Because we have to have so many scenes where Ben Affleck's like, but I'm not Nick.
That's what's funny.
Finally he's like, fuck it, I'm Nick.
Right, with Slevin, it's like creatively done, like he's hiding it. But this one, he has come out at least 4 or 5 times in the first 30 minutes, like, no, guys, I'm not him. And they go out of their way to be like, but you are.
Because that means, like, he just straight up is like, I pretended to be somebody else so I could have sex with Charlize Theron.
Bone your sister. So,
and it's like, how is that not just the rest of this movie? That's how the first time I saw it, I was like, oh, she's a bad guy. Because like any other woman, if somebody was like, I just slept with you. However, I've been manipulating you to do that through mistaken identity after the person you loved was murdered. That's the film. That's the movie. And instead we're just like, nah, it's casino, fine. Santa.
I believe when before like we knew that she was bad, I believed that she was still on board with him, just because like what kind of any woman that's like writing to a guy in prison and like telling them she's in love with him is gonna be a little crazy,
it's a little off.
Yeah, so that twist I wasn't like super surprising, but also I bought it. But the Nick twist, well, I loved it because I'm like, wow, I didn't see that coming. It made no sense.
That was one of those ones. Okay, so like the her switching and being in the pool, I was like, oh my god, I did not see that coming. Oh my god. But at the end, when Nick comes out from around the truck, I'm like, okay, what the fuck, guys? Seriously?
Oh, well, you could tell, again, this is clearly a movie where they just went, Santa's robbing a casino, and we need to fill 90 minutes around that. They probably got to that point and were like, we need like 15 more minutes for this to be a movie. What if Nick's alive? Like, this whole movie just feels like they really had like 5 cool ideas, and we're like, no, it's a whole movie, though.
Right. Yeah. And then like Danny Trejo's in this, Clarence, like this cast is insane.
Trejo was killing me in that scene where he's like talking about like we should have 2 Christmases because it like you'd think an economy would be smarter about that. He was really getting me.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, all of his scenes were great. Almost all of the scenes with the like supporting cast was great. Yeah. It's the main villain who is the most like, what? His motivation is preposterous. He's just like, I've been a truck driver all my life, and I deserve to be rich.
Yeah, like I love Gary Sinise, but like whatever he's doing in this movie is like 75 times what everyone else is doing. I was like, you are in a completely different film. I love
it, and it gets so hyper violent at the end. We crush him in between a car. We drop Charlie's in a truck off a cliff. It gets like Michael Bay insane.
It does.
And then Ben Affleck just drops money off.
I'm gonna hand off money because I'm Christmas. And then it ends with him sitting at a Christmas table because Christmas. He's like, you know what? I want to hang out with my family. Let's eat. Like,
didn't bother to shower. Just sat down at that table all dirty. I thought it was cute that he gave away the money, but it was like, shouldn't you take off that Santa suit? It wasn't the whole point that there are 5 Santas.
We keep hearing
we got a Santa suit.
Right.
We go out of our way to have a Charlize Theron voiceover to remind us that the whole thing was we needed 5 Santas for Ben Affleck to be like, I'm gonna rock this Santa suit.
So the whole time I'm sitting like, take the fucking Santa thing off and throw it down there too.
I thought he was gonna switch clothes with Nick or something.
Right.
Nope.
Jamie, there were a lot of solutions that would have taken 30 seconds. Just take it off in general because you've disintegrated 2 bodies. It also does that weird like 2000s trope where whatever the person is in the beginning has to be what solves it. He spends the whole movie like, well, I was robbing cars. I know how to rob every car.
Never gets brought up again.
Meaningless until the very end of the movie when they're pushing him off the cliff and he's like, wait a man, if I just rob this car.
Remember an hour and 35 minutes ago when I told you I was a car
He did
thief?
hotwire that hotel room door open.
It's true. He
That
did.
too. Yeah. It's.
I don't see how those two things are related,
I
but
don't
he
see
still
how
did.
you can do that with that. They don't necessarily
very,
correlate.
very film school Save the Cat, where it's like, no, but he knows because he was a museum curator, so he of course would be able to identify the fake money later. Like these, no, of course not. But sure, why not? Because those Santa's bullied at that casino was worth the price of entry. That whole movie just proved if you have a cool enough climax, I will forgive your insane. There's cockroaches in the Jello.
Hated that.
Prison
Cockroaches in the Jello. There's a whole like almost become like, hey, listen to my dialogue. I just want hot chocolate and a pecan pie, and he recites it back like, well, now are we trying to be like a Quentin Tarantino? What is happening here?
Oh no, this was the era where everybody saw Pulp Fiction and was like, we can do it.
Yeah.
This. Boondock Saints, which saw the divine intervention scene and was like, what if this was the whole movie? What if the whole movie was two guys that were like, God is with us, and therefore nothing happens to them? Lucky Number 11, which again I love, but that is just a Tarantino script if it was made by an AI, and it's fantastic. This movie, there was a good 4 years where everybody was like, this QT guy, he
might be onto something.
He ripped us off. Let's rip him off, right?
I think The Way of the Gun came out this year too. That's another one.
The Way of the Gun. Oh my! It was Quentin Tarantino, or it was The Matrix from 2000 until Batman Begins came out. Yeah. That's what we were doing. We were cloning The Matrix, or we were cloning Quentin Tarantino until 2005. Or you were Spider-Man and X-Men. Those are your three options.
Those are the options.
Quentin Tarantino, Spider-Man or the X-Men, or whatever the third one I said was, The Matrix.
What's funny is this film came out in February. It's another one of those ones where it did not make sense with the release. And I was like, oh, all right.
Well, normally when it's a summer release, I'm like, you got to get that Blu-ray under the Christmas tree. This, I'm like, okay. So traditionally, a 9-month window would have been...
What I read was that this was supposed to be a late 90, like around Christmas 99, and then I guess they did test screenings and the ending didn't work, so they went back and redid it.
So we had to add Nick.
Let's have Nick come out from around this truck. Like, guess what, guys? I've been here the whole time. No, the fuck you haven't. But then that's when they delayed it to 2000, and it came out around that point. And I was like, this still doesn't make sense. What? It's a Valentine's Day movie?
This had to come out like within like a week or two of Scream 3.
They're like 2 weeks apart.
Wow.
Kruger was sitting there like, I got him. I'm making money. Let's do it.
Yeah.
I'm out here.
God, what vastly different screenplays.
But both delightful, in my opinion.
What range?
Exactly.
God, Scream 3 is just... They both have ludicrous endings.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's what that guy does. He's like, what if at the end of the movie you were just confused?
I'm just going to go nuts. You won't know what's happening.
What Reindeer Games was missing was Parker Posey.
Yes.
Reindeer Games was also missing, like, they were brothers also. That's, like, the only thing this needed to be, like, full tilt Scream 3 was Ben Affleck to be like, you wouldn't shoot your own brother. I was in prison to get you out. I went in there and you'd be like, oh my God.
Another thing that didn't make sense to me is that why were so many people that were in there for different crimes at different why are they all getting released at the same time?
I was thinking that too. I'm like, somebody's on murder and the other one's an auto thief. I don't feel like the time that you guys are in here should equate.
Well, they kept trying to be like, it was murder. But like, this judge thought that guy should have been killed. That kept being their thing. It was like, it was manslaughter, but the guy was like trying to hurt his girlfriend. So instead of 25 to life, it's the equivalent of stealing a car.
But either way, why is there a mass? Like a lot of people left prison that day. Did they all I don't understand.
It was a smooth
how prison works, right?
It was a smooth 20 people that were getting released.
Jamie, this whole wherever this movie pretends to take place,
it's supposed to be in Michigan. It's supposed to be Upper Peninsula of Michigan, which I'm like, guys, please don't put that on me.
Because there's also a casino just like at the top of a mountain. And the whole agency of this casinos are like, well, nobody comes because it's snowy. If we could melt this snow, why did you build the casino there then? Why does this man who...
So I have a fun fact. the character that Donald Logue plays was originally Vin Diesel, but he backed out because he got into it with the director. Can you imagine this movie with Vin Diesel in it too?
Yeah. Oh my god, I just remembered Ashton Kutcher was in 2 seconds of it.
Ashton just shows up out of nowhere.
And he was like famous by then. That 70s show was
this
going.
was happening in the height of that 70s show. Yeah.
But if this was supposed to be 99, that 70s show would have been like fairly early. And then we got pushed. So you got to figure it was filmed around the time that was starting.
Yeah.
What a great bit part too, because I was like, if I went into the bathroom of a casino and a man accosted me and was like, I'm not going to hurt you, even though I'm holding you against this wall.
Right.
I will give you $100 American, which fine. And my clothes, if you just walk out wearing my clothes. And then moments after another man attacked me, I would have walked out of that bathroom, thrown that hat, taken off that coat, and called it a day.
Never mind. I still have my $100, but I'm taking these clothes off because shit gets real when I have this on.
He kept wearing it as if that's what he wanted out of the deal. As if he was like, I'm going to get out of this casino with this cowboy.
To be fair, I would have taken the deal to wear that outfit. It was a pretty good outfit.
Pretty cool outfit.
I mean, it was great. I love that Michigan casino thought they could compete with Las Vegas, that was a plot point in the movie.
I'm telling you how much they thought this was a Quentin Tarantino movie, because that Dennis Farina speech about the snow in the casino does not need to be in the movie other than, I just like to have fun dialogue, so here we go.
Oh, fun, offensive dialogue. That was very well, Quentin did it. I'm going to make fun of these Native Americans.
If I do the Native Americans, it's fine, right?
It's like, oh my God. It's just...
Yeah.
I do love the server who every time someone asked her how she was doing, she's gone fucking freezing.
That was the best. That was another very Tarantino side character. I love it.
Yeah.
But what's very interesting about this movie compared to all the other Christmas non-traditional movies we've done is that thematically, it's really not a Christmas movie, because so far we've been like, well, it's about coming home for the holidays. It's about getting family together. It's about forgiveness, which are all sort of in there.
He wants to get home for the holidays. That's his main purpose.
Right.
But unlike the other ones, he just drops off that money and then is like, I'll go somewhere else.
And it's also
I'll be back next
us,
Christmas.
It's also hard for us to, as an audience, to be like, he just wants to go home for the holidays. When he was on a bus that was taking off, and he's like, but I do want this piece of ass. And he gets off the bus just to go get that.
I originally thought, I was like, get off the bus, tell this girl that Nick is dead. And then I was like, oh, that's not what he's doing right now.
That is the correct thing to do, Jamie.
I think that's what was happening. Yeah. And then I was like, good, get off the bus, she needs to know. And then I'm like,
don't just leave her out there in the cold. Be like, hey, I just want to let you know, you don't need to wait out here because he unfortunately passed. He's like, no, let me.
No, he decides, I'm gonna trick this woman into sleeping with me.
But it's okay because in the end she tricked him too.
I was gonna say, normally I'd be like,
I did love the line when she was like, I'd never sleep with the wrong man.
Yeah.
What a bizarre thing to say.
She has a line in there that just made me, I was like, oh, well, only Charlize can say this. That I was like, oh yeah, of course. Oh yeah, she was something like, her response is, who wouldn't? She's like, oh yeah, I wanted to be like, he really loved you. He really loved you. And she just looks at him and was like, who wouldn't? I was like, yeah, she's not wrong.
Yeah.
No, I did love how cold she got at the end. I was like, "Ooh, she becomes a great villain in this third act." This movie, is awesome.
it's a batshit crazy film. She's acting her ass off in this
movie.
Oh, everybody's doing their part in the movie. I was like, Ben Affleck's I believe him in every scene he's in. Because he does go through enough weird moments of he's afraid when the gun's on his neck. He's just annoyed most of the time. And I was like, I buy that he would just be annoyed.
Yeah, when those darts are getting thrown at him, he's in genuine fear. Everyone is doing great stuff. It's just Gary Sneak's notwithstanding. I don't know. He's just in something else. But it just all comes together in this hodgepodge of wow, I think I enjoyed this. This is bizarre enough that this gets some weird, funny bone. I like movies like Surviving the Game in the '94. There's movies like these action late '90s, early 2000 films. And I'm like, yeah, I'm in it. Let's do it. But you're right. Christmas-wise, literally has outside of the aesthetic of Christmas, is probably the least Christmas film that we've done in this whole run.
I like that they try to like drop as many Christmas like things in there. Like Gary Sinise at one point, like he's just like making Christmas pun threats,
Yeah,
just like to remind you that it's Christmas.
and
And I appreciate that.
we get needle drops from
Mhm.
songs
Yeah.
consistently throughout this. Like they keep reminding you that this is supposed to be a
Mhm.
Christmas film.
Again,
Just
somebody just wanted to do Santa's in a casino. Somebody was just like, I think it's going to be great. And they weren't wrong. The one thing we have not talked about yet, and then we'll get into why we're pairing this up with Hawkeye. Um, at one point, the best death in the movie, somebody lights a cigarette, and Ben Affleck has filled a water pistol with rum and
Yeah.
shoots it through the mat. I don't know how flammable alcohol is in all reality, other than what movies have told me. But I have to assume that if a man lit a cigarette and I squirted squirt gun amounts of alcohol at it, that it wouldn't Hadouken his face.
Well, who
Yeah.
cares?
I love
Because it was awesome. As soon as he put that booze in there, I'm like, how are we going to use this? And I was not disappointed.
Not
Oh,
disappointed.
we've never telegraphed something in a movie harder than you just load. Then the whole time them being like, we're not going to give you a real gun. We're not going to give you a real gun. I'm going to pretend to kill you with a squirt gun. This random man, this trucker, is just like, oh, I'm going to give you some rum. Here, he fills it up. Of course, that was going to come back. I was
Yeah.
like, something awesome is going to happen with this.
I thought he was just going to sting somebody's eyes. This is way better.
This is much better.
Oh yeah,
much
I was
better.
like, oh, he's gonna he's gonna get somebody drunk with it maybe and like squirt it in there.
When Clarence Williams started lighting up, I was like, oh, this is about to get ugly.
Mhm.
I can't wait.
I also just thought somebody else was gonna get it and shoot Ben Affleck and him be like, I love taking shots, and then he'd smack him or something. I was waiting for some dumb, ridiculous moment, but it's interesting how well in some ways this pairs up with where we are in Hawkeye, because so many of the character dynamics are very similar to what we're sort of seeing. If even just from the crime aesthetic of it, we've sort of flipped over. Like this is sort of where Echo's agency would be and everybody else's, of like keeping this crew together and caring about them, but then like having somebody who just clearly doesn't, and what that sort of means in the plan. But even like Clint's arc of redemption and be like, well, I don't want to do this anymore, is very similar to what Ben Affleck's going through, except one of them is just like a straight up carjacker and the other is a superhero who killed bad people.
There's also a lot of mistaken identity. People
A
think
lot.
Kate's Ronin, Yelena thinks Clint's bad. Like, there's a lot of similarities there, too.
That's also a really good point. Like so much of this Hawkeye show has come down to a case of mistaken identity, and oddly that with like the backdrop of Christmas are what these two movies are. And I feel like having the themes and aesthetic of Christmas with a mistaken identity story even just adds a lot of like weird perversions of the concept of like family and togetherness and friendship, because it is that weird like, well, what does it really mean if identity becomes secondary to that family? Like we sort of see Ronan's arc if we go from Endgame of like, I don't have anything, to now him trying to put together a new Avengers and deal with grief and get Kate back to her family, all the while everyone being like, but this Ronan character, and even like Kate and his friendship parallels a lot of this like, but you know what you're doing, right? And then being like, well, no, we don't really know what we're doing because like you have the wrong idea. It's interesting what that all of that is, but it's a shame. I love a good mistaken identity story. It's just that Lucky Number Slevin does it so perfectly.
Yeah.
You're making me want to watch that. It's been a few years. I know I have.
Jimmy, it's so good. You
I
should
have it
go
on
watch
DVD.
it immediately.
But I saw it in theaters and I was like, heck yeah, this is good. But like, it's been a while. I should definitely check it out.
It's a very underrated movie. It's just insane and fun and crazy.
Yeah, fantastic cast. I was like, how did Josh Hartnett, like, how did he not go bigger than this? This guy's
People
amazing.
thought it was way too close to Quentin Tarantino when it came out. Most of the reviews were like, we just did this but better with Pulp Fiction. And I was
It
like,
was
we
like 10
did it.
years later.
I know. That's how long Pulp Fiction stayed in our minds. It's like,
It doesn't help that it had like, I mean, Bruce is in there. It's a Weinstein. Like it has a lot of like connections. to
Isn't
that.
Lucy Liu in it too?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, you got a lot of Tarantino people in there.
yeah.
Yeah, it's very Tarantino light, and I think that was the biggest. But we're not talking about Lucky Number Slave. A delightful film.
We'll have to find a way to tie this in with a future
I'm
level.
sure that there will be an assassin
Crime
show
bosses. Echo is
eventually.
gonna. That's what's gonna
That could
happen.
be Echo, yeah.
I think that's it, guys. That's all I've got.
Love it.
Well, thank you so much for listening. You can, of course, leave us a review and a comment on YouTube and follow the show at Hollywood ADI on Twitter and Instagram. I'm at, as always, Blake. Jamie is at Jamie Said Max. Terrence is at Terrence Tatum. And I do another podcast, How Do You Figure, about action figures. Hollywood Already Did It has 2 other shows, the main podcast about reboots, remakes, and sequels and why we keep doing it. And another one called You Can't Do That Anymore, about movies that came out that you maybe couldn't make anymore. This one would be an excellent case of all sorts of weird things that if I wrote down that in a script now, you'd be very upset.
Yeah.
Terrence does everything else on our Hollywood channel, the reviews, series reviews, Chucky, Dexter, all of those are good, which are also great shows that you should be watching, and then watching Terrence's show after each one. And Jamie, of course, is on the Phase Zero podcast for comicbook.com, where she also has many articles. And that is it.
Later.